Hello, everyone. It's good to have everyone here. I'm Michèle Kline, and we have...
Hi, everyone. Stephanie Ledger. Nice to see you all again.
Wonderful. Anyone who celebrated Christmas, I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. If you had the fabulous opportunity to work through Christmas, I hope you had wonderful experiences and that you created some memorable moments for those guests who chose your hotel, your resort, your cruise to stay with you as opposed to someone else. Because remember, there's a lot of competition out there.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So what do we have today, Stephanie? I think we're talking about outside maintenance and those, you know, that border that no one can truly see. Oh,
Yeah.
this is a good one. Yes,
Exactly.
lots of memories.
Yes. How many times have you heard, it wasn't me, or I didn't do that last year? No, that wasn't my department. That's someone else.
And it's the constant tug of war between the EVS team or the public areas team and the housekeeping team and the engineering team and the outside maintenance team, and some team somewhere had to get it done in prior years, yes. Right?
Exactly.
Awesome. So let's pull the pictures out so that you and I can have a conversation.
Yeah.
I have, as you do, I am sure, many experiences that I can share when it comes to the it wasn't me, or who is it, who does this, right? Yeah. And I can speak from the experience of being on the operator side of the fence, on the vendor side of the fence, in a union property, in a non-union property, and all of the above.
Absolutely. And even the guest experience as well, when I'm like, did that just come out of your mouth and say that to me? And you don't know who I am, and you're telling me that you can't get this done or communicate to another department, or this doesn't happen. We don't have lunch in the lobby, or, you know, whatever it may be. And it's crazy too what the staff is saying to the guest as well.
Yes, which drives you bananas because you just took the time to explain to someone who's wearing a uniform and most likely a name tag what your problem is and what solution you're seeking. And that person flat out tells you, yeah, that's not my responsibility, or that's not me.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you go the extra mile, find a solution?
Exactly.
Or point me in the right direction.
Absolutely. But yeah, so let's start talking first with our outside vendors. So let's start here. You know, it's a change that we're starting to see, I think, with a lot of hotels of working with more and more outside vendors. And now, as you know, the hotel leader, the manager, that you're having to balance with all of these different vendors to making sure at the end of the day that the job's getting done for the guests to enjoy their stay at your property, and not, you know, making sure too that you're kind of creating this mystique that the guests don't see of, you know, all the different players that are associated that's outside of the hotel, to making sure that things are getting done and running smoothly on property.
Yes, indeed. And I've been on both sides, right? And let me tell you, it's nerve-wracking to be in both sides. On the one hand, you have your vendor that when you bring them in, there is a very clear RFP and everything is detailed, and you have that initial walk typically with someone from the vendor's sales team who you're about to outsource a specific area to, and sales will go far and beyond and tell you they're going to take care of it all, from the ceiling to the floor, from the door to the whatever, right? It's almost like the sales team does not have any borders.
No, they paint
if your property ends in the water, That's as much as your department or your vendor, your new amazing, outstanding vendor will clean.
Yes.
They will rake that sand for you.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
But then on the other hand, you have the vendor side or the operator who's now thinking, okay, on the request for proposal, it's very clear that the delimitations of these particular areas. So if it says porta cachere, well, porta cachere means one thing, right? It doesn't mean the sidewalk, true story, across from the main entrance where the nice vehicles are being parked, which is literally maybe a block away, and your sidewalk is no man's land, right? It's like the wild west, and you have those thingy like rolling in the wind, and you hear the cowboyish type of music happening. Nobody has ever touched that area, right? But the little edge of the curb is yellow. And someone has to clean it. Because it has to look yellow.
Yeah.
And now I have a vendor. And the vendor comes in and looks at the operator from the vendor side, looks at the side, and the yellow is no longer yellow. You can barely see it. So it hasn't been cleaned for that long. But now you want us to clean it, but it's not in the contract. So what do we do? Right? Yeah. So I worked for many years for an organization that provided third-party services. And in my division, we were used to not saying no. We would say yes to absolutely everything. But think about the stress that puts on the team, because now you are either having people work overtime to make that happen because you don't want to say no to your client. And on the other hand, you've built those relationships and you want the property to look good. You have a special party coming in or whatever the case may be. But the strain that is putting also on the vendor's budget, on the team that perhaps is now trying to accomplish more than one job at a time, or on other specific areas that were supposed to be touched that night and are not going to be touched that night, or that special project that was going to be done is now falling behind on the special projects calendar because you have to go take care of that particular thing that was outside of the scope, right? So what I would say in that sense is, let's make sure that the RFP is very clear, that the scope of work is very clear, and that there is very clear communication between sales, operations, and whoever it is from the hotel side. Yeah. So that's my perspective from the vendor side. Yeah. What story can you share, Stephanie? And then we'll go into the different perspectives.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because then it's also too, it's, when do you draw the line? As well. So, this is a one-off project. There's a big event that's happening, or VIPs from corporates on their side that's coming, and they say it's just that one-off project. Okay, you know what? Well, we have one-off projects on our RFP. This is going to be, fine. And then next week it's something else, and then it's something else. And then when do you, go and say, okay, you know what? We need to then look at this differently, to making sure that the vendor has the business, but then also too, you were saying too, is making sure that the clients are taken care of. But
right, and then all those projects that are now this big gigantic snowball that is chasing you constantly, and you're like running like a chicken with your head cut off because you can't get caught up and you can't make it to the finish line with all the other projects that you're falling behind with. Yeah. So then there's always the other departments that are complaining, well, my this didn't get taken care of, my that didn't get taken, because they don't know that the team was actually doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then, there's no communication.
Exactly. And then sales is looking at your budget performance and wondering, oh, why are you having so much, overtime? We budgeted, you should be, hitting this with your numbers. And yeah, it just turns into, not a very fun conversation at all.
Not at all.
But so then also, my experience has been a lot when I was living in New York City, is that we have to there's a lot that is between what is the city's responsibility, say the sidewalk, what part of that sidewalk is considered the city and what part of it is considered our responsibility. Because there was actually a person that had slipped off of ice. That's how we had the picture with the snow. And at first, they tried to say that it was the hotel's responsibility. But through the whole, lawsuits and things like that, it ended up having to be the city's responsibility. But, it just shows you not that big of an extreme thing, but just those small details, especially when you're a GM or a hotel manager or a new director, new leader that's taking over a certain department, is making sure you're doing that walkthrough from that A to Z of understanding it clearly. Okay, this is our responsibility for my team members. This is the responsibility of my vendors that I work with, so that everyone is on the same page right when you're starting as well. Because you don't want to now start in, say, summertime, and now it comes winter time, which we all know snow comes every winter, unless you're in Miami. But you want to making sure that you're having those discussions right off the bat, so it's not you're 6 months in and then being like, oh, I didn't know that, or, oh, I should have discussed that right in the beginning when I was reviewing the contracts. And that's another thing, as a new leader taking over a certain department or a hotel, is reviewing your contracts as well. Even if the contract hasn't been revised in 5 years, this is just an open contract that they have. They don't change it. It's very straightforward, but still make sure that you're reviewing the contract too.
Yes, absolutely. And also understanding which department does what, right? When it comes to having a vendor on property, it's always easier to point fingers. You're always going to point your finger at the outsider. Yeah. But it's important that we understanding the cases where you have several different departments handling different things, especially in union environments, as to where does that line is drawn, right? What is my responsibility? What is the responsibility? Public areas and outside maintenance. Those are two very classic ones. In bigger hotels where you have a team that is responsible for anything from the doors beyond, and now you have snow, right? Mm-hmm. And typically any space directly outside of an entrance will be handled by your public areas team, but then you have your outside maintenance team who is going to be responsible to remove that snow throughout the winter. Mm-hmm. And how many times your public areas team is not prepared to handle the snow removal in the entrance.
Yeah. Yep.
They don't have the tools, they don't have the jackets, they don't have, right? So yeah. How do we bridge that gap between the two departments so that they can understand at the end of the day, it's a matter of ensuring that the guest is taken care of, that team members are able to use those entrances, and that we're providing a safe environment for everyone, as opposed to saying it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And you and I were talking about this briefly a few weeks ago as to how you come in perhaps to a new project or as a new leader, and you ask these questions and they don't have the answer. Yep. And you're pulling your hair out saying, who did it last year?
Yes.
How has this entrance been surviving the snow for the past 5 years? Yep. Someone had to do it.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly. And even getting back to your point too, with ordering the product as well. Okay, so we have public areas that's going to be the ones that are out there helping with the shoveling, but then okay, so they have to sprinkle the salt, to making sure that that's on there. But is your director of public areas ordering the salt, or is that engineering that's ordering the
right? Salt? And you go back to engineering, and all you hear from them is like, oh, we have enough salt for the ramps. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, and now we have a polar vortex coming.
This is awesome.
Yes, exactly. So it's not just about who's doing it, but also to who is the one responsible in the preparation for the job at hand. I know we've been using with the snow, but like, you know, say even like plants, watering the plants. You know, is it an outside company that's coming in? Do they come in on a certain schedule? You know, are they responsible to making sure that they're getting the, you know, particular plant food that needs to be for the roses versus the tulips or gardenias or the palm tree? As well, and you know, or is that, you know, maintenance of making sure that they're the shrubbery that, you know, for us we have a lot of winds, and you know, making sure that who's cleaning the grounds as well. It's not just saying, oh, you know, plant lady or plant gentleman is only coming on Mondays, and now here it is on Friday. We just had high winds and we're having 100% occupancy. We're just going to leave the grounds looking like that. You know, what places are in place to making sure that when those come up, it's being taken care of for the guest point of view too.
Which leads me to sharing a quick story. Early on in my career, I was in charge of the public areas department for a very large property. Mm-hmm. And we had a very big lobby that had beautiful flowers in various places throughout the lobby, really, really big lobby. And when I first started, I had someone from the bell desk tell me that we had to make sure that you have, like, almost putting me against the wall, you have to make sure that the plants are taken care of and no one's watering the plants, and who's watering the plants. And I'm like, okay, I did not know that plants was part of my job description, right? But here I go, and I make sure that now the watering of the plants was on a specific schedule of specific team members throughout the day, because we, you know, I was in charge of the 3 shifts. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe like 2 weeks into having this new protocol in place with the cleaning team, not the plants team, I get my booty chewed.
Oh no.
By the plant doctor.
Oh no.
Yes. I was really young. And, you know, I was still learning, and I was still learning how to grow a thick skin, which we all have in the end in this hospitality career. And he came up to me and he's like, I am the plant doctor and you stay away from my plants. And I know that your people are watering my plants. And he was so upset. Oh. And I was like, okay, you guys need to figure this out. I'm being told that we're not watering the plants. We must water the plants. So I put the protocol in place. We're watering the plants. Now the plant doctor comes over and we're not supposed to be watering the plants. And it was so stressful, right? So once again, another example as to, I could have totally killed those plants because I didn't know that these ones were supposed to be taken care of this way and the other ones the other way. And I was just doing what I was told I was supposed to be doing, right? And that wasn't my expertise either. Mm-hmm. So yes, the plant doctor got very upset with the cleaning lady because he kept on referring to me as the cleaning lady, which was awesome.
Oh, geez.
So that's my share.
Yeah. So the last thing, let's talk about, so now, like, when you're going through the negotiation of your vendors, and so you say you have a plant doctor and there's about 3 plant doctor options, you know, I think it's very important to making sure with asking for references and doing your own homework as well. You know, the sales, they're painting you that pretty picture, what we were discussing about, but it's your responsibility.
No offense to anyone in sales out there, by the way.
We've all been there painting a pretty picture. But just making sure that you're finding that right vendor for you of what the task needs to be done, and not now, you know, being into something that is going to be more of a headache for you in the long run, especially with a lot of new leaders that, you know, they were the supervisor, so they've built these relationships with the certain vendors that, you know, come on a consistent basis, but now taking that step to leadership and management and now having to be that decision maker, you know, there's a lot that needs to be done of making sure, okay, I'm signing on the dotted line or putting my foot forward of saying that we need to have this particular vendor.
Yes, absolutely. 3 quote rule of thumb, always. it's the other tip that I would share is it's not always about the dollar. It's not always about the dollar amount. Compare the 3 vendors to comprehend exactly what it is that they're offering to you. Many times the quotes are written in a way where they're confusing and there's a lot of pretty words. Try to read through past those pretty words and then ask operations specific questions, right? Like, do you water all the plants the same day of the week? And see what happens, see what they say. Do you treat all the plants the same way? So even though we may not be fully aware of exactly what we are asking for a quote for, because that may not be our area of expertise. If there's no one else in our team that can assist through the process of finding the right vendor, then make sure that you do a little bit of research and ask the right questions so that you can sign off on that quote with a more educated decision.
Absolutely. And I like that. If you're getting your own team involved, you know, we're seeing a lot of leaders that they were up north, and now they're coming down to, you know, down here in Florida and into Nevada and Arizona and California as well. And so, you know, what our seasons and vendors is very different than up north and vice versa. A lot of managers too are, you know, going back home to their hometown or for other reasons, you know, taking on positions in the colder climates when they're mostly used to resort warm tropical climate. So
Yes.
you know, you may think that, okay, I have all my ducks in a row, and then you're like, oh yes, I forgot about the fall and all the trees and the leaves falling now.
And then you look to the side and you say, it wasn't me.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, or the plants that don't survive year round. They're very seasonal plants too, and you're like, oh, what happened? Oh, we're just in the changing of season, and you know that lovely tulip's not going to be still sprouting in December.
Yes, indeed.
Well, this is great. Anything else you want to add, Michelle?
No, I think we're good. I think we covered it all. Everyone have a safe New Year's Eve. Have fun. Remember, we're there to deliver great service. It's the reason why our customers, our guests, our patrons are choosing us. So make sure you give it your best and enjoy it while you're there. There's a reason why you're still in the industry. And so set your heart to it and your best foot forward to start the new year.
Absolutely. Wishing everyone a successful 2022. Wow, crazy.
Crazy.
I know.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next year.
Bye.